The moment my son-in-law hit my daughter, the entire table went silent, except for one sound, clapping, his mother applauding like it was something to be proud of. My name is Linda. I'm 58 years old, and that night I realized I had failed my daughter. Not because I didn't love her, but because I didn't see the truth soon enough. It was supposed to be a normal family dinner. Nothing special. Just one of those evenings where everyone gathers, pretends everything is fine, and tries not to bring up anything uncomfortable. My daughter Sarah had invited me. "Mom, come over. We haven't seen you in a while," she said on the phone. Her voice sounded careful. I noticed it, but I ignored it. I wish I hadn't. Their house was beautiful, too perfect, clean, minimal, cold. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a place where people behaved, not lived. Daniel opened the door. My son-in-law, always polite, always controlled. "Linda," he said with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Come in." I stepped inside and immediately felt it. Tension, quiet, heavy, like something had already happened before I arrived. Sarah came from the kitchen, smiling too quickly, too brightly. "Mom!" She hugged me, but when she pulled away, I saw it, a faint mark near her wrist, barely visible, but enough. "What happened?" I asked. She looked down. "Oh, I just bumped into something." Daniel laughed lightly behind her. "She's always clumsy." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Dinner started normally, or at least it looked normal, but it didn't feel that way. Every word Sarah said felt measured, careful, like she was choosing each sentence, watching his reaction, waiting for permission without even realizing it. Daniel's mother sat at the head of the table, Evelyn, elegant, sharp, the kind of woman who observes everything and judges silently, or not so silently. "You've been working less, haven't you?" Evelyn asked Sarah. Her tone wasn't curious, it was critical. Sarah nodded slightly. "Yeah, just part-time now." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" Sarah hesitated. Daniel answered for her. "Because she couldn't handle full-time." He smiled like it was a joke. No one laughed, except his mother, a quiet, approving smile. I felt something rising in my chest. "This isn't like her," I said. "Sarah has always been hard-working." Daniel looked at me, still smiling. "But not very strong under pressure," he replied calmly. Sarah lowered her eyes and didn't say a word. That was the moment I knew something was very wrong. Then it happened. Small at first, a glass. Sarah reached for it. Her hand trembled slightly. The glass slipped, fell, shattered on the floor. Silence, immediate, heavy. Sarah froze. "I'm so sorry," she whispered quickly. "I'll clean it up." She stood up too fast. Her chair scraped loudly, and Daniel's expression changed. Instantly. No smile, no warmth, just anger, cold, controlled, dangerous. "You can't even hold a glass?" he said quietly. "Daniel, I... And then he stood up, fast, too fast. Before anyone could react, he hit her. A sharp sound echoed through the room. Sarah stumbled back. Her hand went to her face. The world stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped, except clapping, slow, deliberate. "Evelyn, well done," she said calmly. Finally some discipline. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move, because what I was seeing was not just violence. It was approval, encouragement, a system. "Sit down," Daniel said coldly to Sarah, and she did. Immediately. No resistance, no protest, like it was normal, like it had happened before. That's when something inside me broke, or maybe woke up. "Don't you dare," I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar, low, sharp. Dangerous. Daniel slowly turned to me. "Excuse me?" he said. "You don't touch my daughter." The room froze again. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, studying me like I was the problem now. "You're overreacting," she said calmly. "This is a family matter." "No," I said. "This is abuse." Daniel stepped closer. Too close. "You don't understand how things work in this house," he said quietly. I held his gaze. "And you don't understand who you just touched." That made him pause, just for a second, but it was enough. Sarah grabbed my hand under the table, tight, shaking. "Mom, please," she whispered. "Not help me, not stop him, but please," like she was afraid of what would happen next. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it. Fear, not new, not sudden, old, deep, conditioned. That was the moment I made my decision. Not emotional, not impulsive, clear, cold, final. I reached into my bag, took out my phone, and stood up. Daniel frowned. "What are you doing?" "What are you doing?" I looked him straight in the eyes and said the one sentence that changed everything. "I'm making a call." He smirked, like it was nothing, like I was bluffing, like I didn't matter, like I couldn't change anything. He had no idea who I was calling. Daniel leaned back in his chair, relaxed, amused, like this was entertainment. "Go ahead," he said with a smirk. "Call whoever you want." Evelyn took a slow sip of wine, completely unbothered. "You'll only embarrass yourself," she added calmly. Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. "Mom, please don't," she whispered. Her voice was shaking, not because she was worried about me, because she was afraid of him. That told me everything. I looked at my daughter, at the fear in her eyes, at the way she avoided looking at Daniel, at how quickly she obeyed him, and I understood something clearly. This wasn't the first time, and if I walked away tonight, it wouldn't be the last. So I pressed the call button, put the phone to my ear, and waited. 1 ring, 2, 3. "Hello?" A calm, deep voice answered. "I need you," I said. Silence for half a second. Then the tone changed instantly. "Where are you?" I gave him the address. No hesitation, no explanation, just the location. "I'm on my way," he said. The line went dead. Daniel watched me the whole time, unimpressed. "That's it," he said. "You called someone? Should I be worried?" I didn't answer. I just sat back down and waited. Minutes passed. Slow, heavy, every second stretched. Sarah barely moved. Evelyn looked irritated now. Daniel started losing patience. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I'm not sitting here for some drama." He stood up, grabbed his jacket. "Sit down," I said. He turned, surprised, not used to being told what to do. "What did you just say?" I said, "Sit down." Our eyes locked, and for the first time since I walked in, I saw something shift in his expression. Not fear, but curiosity, like he was trying to figure out if I was serious. I didn't look away. Then a sound outside, a car. Not just any car. Heavy, expensive, the kind you don't ignore. Headlights filled the windows. The engine didn't turn off immediately. It idled. Low, powerful, controlled. Daniel frowned. Evelyn's hand paused, mid-air with her glass. Sarah looked up, confused. Then the front door opened. No knock, just opened. Slowly, confidently. Footsteps, measured, unhurried, each one louder than the last, until he appeared in the doorway. Tall, composed, dressed in dark, perfectly fitted clothes. Not flashy, but unmistakably powerful. The kind of presence that doesn't need to raise its voice because everyone already knows. Daniel's posture changed instantly, subtle but real. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. The man didn't answer him. He looked at me. Only me. "Linda," he said calmly. I nodded. "Thank you for coming." Evelyn stood up now, clearly irritated. "This is unacceptable," she said sharply. "You don't just walk into someone's house." The man finally looked at her, and that was enough. She stopped talking, mid-sentence. Then he looked at Daniel, slow, direct, and suddenly the air changed. "You touched her?" he asked quietly, not loud, not aggressive, but something in his voice made the room feel smaller. Daniel tried to laugh it off. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but this is my house." The man took one step closer, and that was it. Daniel stopped talking. "I'll ask you once," he said, still calm, still controlled. "Did you touch her?" Silence. Heavy, crushing. Sarah's hand was shaking in mine. I squeezed it gently. "It's okay," I whispered. For the first time, I meant it. Daniel swallowed, just slightly. "Yeah," he said finally. "So what?" Wrong answer. The man didn't react immediately. No anger, no shouting, just a quiet nod, like something had been confirmed. Then he looked at me again. "Do you want this handled here?" he asked, "or properly?" Evelyn stepped forward immediately. "Excuse me, you think you can threaten my son in his own house?" "Sit down," he said, not louder, just certain, and somehow she did. My heart was beating fast, but not from fear, from something else, relief, power, justice. I looked at Sarah, at her face, at the mark, at the years of silence behind her eyes, and I made my choice. "Properly," I said. The man nodded once, then reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Daniel laughed nervously now. "You think I'm scared? Who is this guy? Some kind of—" But his voice wasn't steady anymore, because deep down he felt it. "This ends tonight," the man said calmly, and for the first time Daniel looked unsure. Sarah whispered, barely audible, "Mom, who is he?" I looked at her and answered quietly, "Someone who doesn't let men like him get away with things." But what happened next was something none of them were ready for. Daniel tried to laugh again, but this time it didn't sound convincing. "Seriously," he said, looking between me and the man, "what is this? Some kind of intimidation?" No one answered him. That was worse, because silence is where fear grows. The man finished his call, put the phone back in his pocket and looked at Daniel again, calm, focused, unmoved. "They're on their way?" he said. Daniel frowned. "Who?" The man didn't reply. He just walked further into the room, slowly, like he belonged there. Evelyn stood up again, anger returning. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "I will not sit here and be disrespected in my own family." "You raised him to think this was normal," the man said quietly. That stopped her instantly. "You don't get to talk about respect." Her face flushed, but she didn't answer. Sarah was shaking next to me. I could feel it, years of silence trying to break through. "Mum," she whispered. "It's okay," I said softly. "You're not alone anymore." She looked at me, and something changed in her eyes. Not fully, not yet, but something cracked. Daniel exhaled sharply. "This is insane," he muttered. "You think you can just walk in here and—" A knock interrupted him. 3 short knocks, firm, official. Everyone froze. The man turned his head slightly. "Right on time," he said, my heart beat faster. Not from fear, from anticipation. Daniel walked toward the door, slower now, less Uverino. When he opened it, 2 uniformed officers stood outside, and behind them another man, suit, serious, observing everything. "Daniel Hayes?" one of the officers asked. "Yes." "We need you to step outside." "What? Why?" The officer's expression didn't change. "We've received a report of domestic violence." Silence. Total. Absolute. Daniel turned back toward us, his face pale now. "This is a joke," he said. "Tell them this is a joke." No one moved. No one spoke. "Sir?" the officer repeated. "Please step outside." Evelyn rushed forward. "This is absurd. There's no violence here. This is a misunderstanding." "Ma'am," the second officer said calmly, "we'll sort everything out, but right now we need him to cooperate." Daniel looked at Sarah, desperate now. "Say something," he snapped. "Tell them nothing happened." Sarah froze. Her eyes filled with tears. This was the moment she had been avoiding, the moment she had been afraid of. For how long? I didn't even know. "Sarah," he said again, "tell them." His voice was different now, not strong, not in control, demanding, panicked. I didn't speak, I didn't move, because this wasn't my moment. It was hers. She looked at me just for a second, and I nodded. That was all. Then she looked at the officers, took a shaky breath, and said quietly but clearly, "He hit me." The room shattered. Daniel stepped back. No, that's not what happened." "He hit me," she repeated, stronger this time, clearer. The officer nodded once. "All right, sir. Turn around." "What? Are you serious?" "Turn around." Daniel looked at his mother, at me, at Sarah, like he couldn't believe what was happening, because for the first time he wasn't in control. "This is insane," Evelyn shouted. "You're ruining his life over one mistake." The man finally spoke again. "One mistake doesn't leave marks," he said calmly. Silence. The handcuffs clicked, loud, final, real. Sarah flinched at the sound, not from fear this time, from shock, because this was new, consequences. As they led Daniel toward the door, he turned his head, looked straight at Sarah. "You'll regret this," he said coldly. The old fear flickered in her eyes, just for a second. Then she straightened and didn't look away. "No," she said quietly, "I won't." The door closed behind him, and just like that, he was gone. The house felt different, lighter, like something heavy had finally been removed. Evelyn stood frozen, breathing fast, eyes wide. "This isn't over," she said. No one responded, because for the first time her words meant nothing. She grabbed her coat and left, slamming the door behind her. Silence, deep, unfamiliar, but not heavy anymore. Sarah sat down slowly, like her body finally gave in. Her hands were shaking, her breathing uneven. "Mom," she whispered. I sat next to her, held her. "It's over," I said softly, but I knew this was just the beginning. After a moment, she pulled away slightly, looked at the man still standing there, calm, watching. "Who are you?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately, just looked at me, then back at her and said, "Someone your mother trusted when it mattered." She turned to me, confused, still overwhelmed. "Mum, who is he really?" I took a slow breath, because the truth wasn't simple, and it wasn't something I'd told anyone in years. "He's the reason," I said quietly, "you're safe tonight." But what she didn't know yet was that this wasn't just about one night or one man, because the life she thought she had was about to change completely. Sarah looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore, and honestly, I understood why, because for years I had been quiet, careful, predictable, the kind of mother who avoided conflict, who tried to keep peace at any cost. But that version of me didn't walk into her house tonight. Mom," she said slowly, "what do you mean he's the reason I'm safe?" I glanced at him. He gave a small, almost invisible nod, like he knew this moment was coming, like he had been waiting for it. "Sit down," I said gently. Sarah was already sitting, but she straightened, focused, still shaken, but listening. Good, because she needed to hear this, all of it. "I wasn't always like this," I began. She frowned slightly. "Like what?" "Quiet," I said. "Careful, afraid to make people uncomfortable." A small pause. "I learned that later." The man stepped a little closer but stayed silent, letting me speak. "When you were little," I continued, "your father had a business." Sarah nodded. "I remember that. What you don't remember is how dangerous it became." Her expression changed. "What do you mean?" I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "Your father got involved with the wrong people," I said. "People who don't solve problems with conversations." Her face went pale. "Mom, I didn't tell you because I wanted you to have a normal childhood." I looked at my hands for a second, then back at her. "But there was a time when things got bad." The man spoke quietly now. "Very bad." Sarah looked at him, then back at me. "What happened?" "One night," I said, "when someone tried to break into our house." Her breath caught. "I was alone with you." Silence filled the room, heavy, real. "I called him." I nodded towards a man. "And he came." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "You knew him back then?" "Yes." "For how long?" I gave a faint, tired smile. "Long enough to trust him when everything was falling apart." The man finally stepped forward fully. "My name is Victor," he said calmly. "No last name, no explanation, just Victor." "And what do you do?" Sarah asked. Direct, still trying to understand. Victor held her gaze. "I make sure situations like tonight don't continue." Not a full answer, but enough. Sarah swallowed. "And the police?" "They listen when I call," he said simply. That said everything without saying too much. I watched her process it, piece by piece, trying to connect the mother she knew with the woman sitting in front of her now. "Why didn't you ever tell me any of this?" she asked finally. "Because I wanted you to be safe," I said. And you thought hiding it would do that?" "I thought keeping you away from it would." A pause, then softer. "I didn't expect you to end up in something just as dangerous." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time not from fear, from realization. "I thought this was normal," she whispered. The words broke something inside me, because that's the worst part of it. Not the violence, not the control, but the moment someone believes they deserve it. "No," I said firmly, "it's not normal." Victor added quietly, "And it never will be." Silence settled again, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was clearing, like something toxic had finally been exposed. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Her voice was small, but steady. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time that night, I didn't see fear. I saw strength, hidden, buried, but there. "Now," I said, "you decide what your life looks like." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean you don't go back to that," I said. "Ever." She nodded slowly, like she was still convincing herself it was real or that it's over. "It is," Victor said, "but—" He paused and his tone shifted slightly. "Men like him don't like losing control." A chill ran through the room again. "What does that mean?" Sarah asked. "It means," he said calmly, "this might not be the last time he tries to reach you." Her hand tightened around mine. Fear flickered again, but it didn't take over this time. "Then what do I do? she asked. I squeezed her hand. You don't face it alone. Victor nodded once. I'll handle the rest. Simple, direct, final. Sarah looked at both of us, still overwhelmed, still processing, but something had changed, something important. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't shrinking, she wasn't apologizing, she wasn't trying to make things easier for someone else, she was just there, present, aware. I don't want to be afraid anymore, she said quietly. I felt my throat tighten. You won't be, I said, and this time it wasn't just hope, it was a promise. But deep down, I knew something. This wasn't just the end of her old life. It was the beginning of something else, something harder, but stronger. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And once you stop being silent, everything changes. The house felt unfamiliar after that night, not because anything had changed physically, but because everything inside it had. Silence was no longer something to fear. It was something to notice, to understand, to sit with. Sarah stayed with me. She didn't even ask. She just packed a bag the next morning and came over. No hesitation, no looking back. That alone told me how much she had already decided. The first few days were the hardest, not because of him, but because of everything she was starting to feel. When the fear finally leaves, it doesn't disappear quietly. It makes space. And what comes next is heavy. Guilt, shame, anger, questions. Why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I stay? How did I let this happen? I heard her ask those questions more than once, sometimes out loud, sometimes just in the way she stared into nothing, and every time I gave her the same answer. You survived. That's what matters. Because that's the truth people don't talk about. Leaving is not the hardest part. Understanding that you didn't deserve any of it is. That takes time. Days passed, then a week, and then we got the call. It was from the police. Daniel had been charged, not just for what happened that night, but for previous incidents, one she had never reported. But evidence had been there. Neighbours, messages, photos, things she thought didn't matter, things she thought no one would believe. They did. This time they did. Sarah listened quietly, didn't cry, didn't panic. She just nodded and said, okay. That was it. No fear, no hesitation, just acceptance. Like something inside her had finally settled. Victor handled the rest, legal protection, documents, steps that needed to be taken. He didn't say much. He never did. But everything moved quickly, precisely, like it always had. A few days later, we heard he tried to call multiple times from a restricted number. She looked at the phone, watched it ring, and then she turned it off. That was the moment I knew she was done, not scared, not unsure, done, final. He didn't exist in her world anymore. And that was something no one could take from her. Not him, not his mother, not anyone. Evelyn tried once. She came to the house, knocked, demanded to speak. I opened the door, but I didn't step aside. You've done enough, I said calmly. This is still my son's family, she snapped. No, I replied, it isn't. And I closed the door, just like that, no argument, no explanation, just a boundary, the kind I should have set years ago. But I didn't regret that anymore, because it was set now, and that's what mattered. Weeks turned into something softer, quieter. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't come with big moments. It comes in small things. Sarah laughing again, sleeping through the night, walking without looking over her shoulder, living, not surviving, living. One evening, we sat together in the kitchen. Simple dinner, nothing special, and she looked at me and said, I didn't know life could feel like this. I smiled slightly. How does it feel? She thought for a moment, then said, light. That word stayed with me, because that's what she deserved all along. Not fear, not control, not silence. Light. She looked at me again. Thank you. I shook my head. No, I said softly. You did this. She didn't argue. She didn't downplay it. She just nodded, because now she knew her strength, and no one could take that from her again. Later that night I stood by the window, looking outside, thinking, not about what happened, but about what almost didn't. Because if I had stayed silent, if I had looked away, if I had told myself it wasn't my place, everything would have continued, just like before. That's the truth people don't like to face. Silence protects the wrong person, always. But that night, I made one call, and it changed everything, not because of who answered, but because I finally refused to accept what was in front of me. And sometimes that's all it takes. One moment, one decision, one voice that says enough and means it.